Tonight, a day of extremes on the campaign trail, threats against the Premier and a Liberal candidate's controversial religious views exposed.
Violence on Lygon Street, a gang of up to 20 target 2 men, restaurant owners fed up.
A cyclist dead and a driver arrested in Melbourne's north.
World Cup beer ban, a sudden backflip in Qatar just 2 days out from the opening game.
Runway emergency, a passenger plane in a deadly collision.
Australia's biggest sneaker expo sets foot in Melbourne.
And AFL legend Gary Ablett out of retirement for one game only.
Live from Melbourne, 7 News with Mike Amor and Rebecca Madden.
Good evening. Extreme views and controversial candidates have rocked the state election campaign 1 week out from polling day.
A sitting member of Parliament is under fire for threatening Daniel Andrews, while the Liberal Party's taken action on a candidate belonging to an ultra-conservative church.
Addressing a freedom rally, Upper House MP Catherine Cummings said she's joined the Angry Victorians Party.
To make Daniel Andrews turn into red mist. We would call it pink mist, but I want him into red mist.
Pink mist describes the spray of blood after a person is hit by a sniper. Then this aimed at the veterans in the crowd.
Give anyone here in the army a job to blow someone up, and they will!
The Labor Party describes the comments as sickening threats of violence and has referred them to police, but the MP will not apologise.
I was referring to the red shirts and blowing up the corruption in this government. There were many police that were there. If I had done something wrong, I'm sure I would have been arrested.
That after the Liberals' policy launch on tennis and Labor's on live music were overshadowed by candidate controversy.
Hello, Renee Heath, Liberal for the Eastern Region.
The Liberals knew Renee Heath belonged to the City Builders Church, which preaches homosexuality and abortion are demonic. But today, the Age alleged Ms Heath went to 4 church conferences overseas and the church used gay conversion therapy and child exorcism. Enough for her leader to cut her loose.
I've asked that Renee after the election not sit in the party room.
Just last Wednesday, Matthew Guy defended her pre-selection.
And the candidate review processes are pretty stringent.
But now party insiders believe she lied in pre-selection interviews. Mr Guy said with voting having already started, it was too late to disendorse Ms Heath. On Liberal how to vote cards, she's still the top preference in the Eastern Victoria region, virtually guaranteed a seat.
She would be a Liberal independent in the Parliament.
The Premier used the controversy to attack the Liberals' decision to put Labor last on the ballot.
The Liberal Party are preferencing racists, they are preferencing extremists, they are preferencing black-shirted women haters, they are preferencing Nazis.
Mr Guy denied his attacks on the Electoral Commission over its investigation into his former Chief of Staff would damage public confidence.
And I have full confidence in the VEC to manage that process and to count those votes fairly and accurately and reasonably.
With the major parties battling integrity issues, minor parties see an opportunity.
We saw at the federal election voters moving away from the major parties at record levels. And I can understand why when they see scandal after scandal.
Nick McCallum, 7 News.
Up to 20 men are on the run after violence erupted on Lygon Street, leaving 2 men in hospital. Carlton restaurant owners say they're tired of gangs causing trouble for the popular dining precincts.
Defenceless and crawling to get help, this man had just been knocked unconscious by a gang of up to 20 men, then had his head stomped on 12 times.
You could hear boys chanting, you could just hear them all shouting, let's get him, let's make this even, let's make it square, fight, fight, fight.
The 4 a.m. ambush happened along Little Cardigan Lane near Lygon Street, waking residents nearby.
A bit hectic, and then all of a sudden you could just hear this guy wheezing. He's just like, oh my gosh.
The violence in this incident is horrific. It was a terrible, senseless act.
A woman in an apartment above trying desperately to comfort the distressed victim.
Ambulance, come in here, this boy here, come.
Just listening to this woman, she was a saviour. She was just like, enough, you need to stay here now. Like, this is what you've done. You need to, deal with the consequences.
The violence didn't end there. A second man was stabbed in the stomach just metres from the first attack.
They're both horrific. They're both terrible acts of violence that potentially could take a life.
Traders along Lygon Street say the ongoing violence is taking its toll on business, with police forced to shut down the area at least every 3 weeks while they investigate serious crimes.
We were supposed to have like a 50-person booking this morning, and it got cancelled because of the police tape.
Probably a little bit more unsettled this time because the outcome is a lot more extreme.
Both victims, aged in their 20s and 30s, remain in hospital tonight, placed in induced comas. Cassie Zervos, 7 News.
A cyclist has died after he was hit by a van in Melbourne's north. Paul Dowsley is in Thornbury tonight. And Paul, the driver, was arrested at the scene.
He did stop after the crash, Mike, but the cyclist died here on St George's Road, just near the tram depot at the Miller Street intersection. Happened just after 10:30 last night. The cyclist, a 29-year-old from Reservoir, believed to be a food delivery rider, was heading south when he was hit from behind by a white Hi-Ace van. Its driver, a 50-year-old man from Sunshine North, was arrested because police say they found cannabis in his van. He will be charged over that, but police are yet to decide if he will face charges over the fatal collision. What happened last night, Mike, is the 11th death of a cyclist on Victorian Road so far this year.
Paul Dowsley, thank you.
A man's been stabbed in a violent carjacking in Melbourne's southeast. Police have been told the 27-year-old victim was asleep inside his Mazda, parked in a Cranbourne East street when he was approached at about 2 this morning. He was stabbed several times. The attacker then stole his car. The man was taken to hospital but wasn't badly injured.
The Prime Minister is on his way home from Southeast Asia tonight after a 9-day tour covering 3 major summits. Anthony Albanese is optimistic about renewed international cooperation, but now faces a Senate showdown back home.
The streets of Bangkok erupt in violent clashes. Anti-government protesters no match for riot police. One man making a naked appeal for peace. It doesn't work. A monk has more success. A stark contrast to the choreographed diplomacy of APEC, Anthony Albanese among leaders welcomed by the Thai king. Today, confirming Australia's support for Taiwan's bid to become part of the Trans-Pacific Trade Partnership, despite Beijing's protests.
Our position has not changed.
Not an issue that was raised in his ice-breaking meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping on Tuesday. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern has gone further after her own meeting with the Chinese President overnight, announcing she will lead a New Zealand trade delegation to Beijing next year.
That was received well, and the suggestion was made that we begin looking for dates in order to conduct that mission.
Anthony Albanese, more cautious.
What we've had this week is first steps, and I'm not getting ahead of myself.
As Vladimir Putin's invasion of Ukraine drives APEC leaders to echo last week's G20 declaration, most leaders voicing their condemnation, but not all, including China.
In today's globalised world, as I said, the challenges can't be dealt with just by nation states acting alone. We need to have cooperation.
After a successful 9-day summit season, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese now heads back to Australia to try to get his government's signature industrial relations bill through a reluctant Senate. Despite all the allure of the world stage, for Australian Prime Ministers, domestic politics is still the main game. In Bangkok, Mark Riley, 7 News.
A group of Melbourne schoolgirls arrested for shoplifting in Singapore have arrived safely back home. Kathleen O'Connor has the details. Kathleen, Singapore police let them off with a warning.
That's right, Beck. Authorities in Singapore questioned the students over several days but said they'd take no further action. All 18 of the Bacchus Marsh schoolgirls arrived in Victoria this morning after flying out of the country at around midnight. 5 of the girls were accused of stealing lingerie and shoes from a shopping centre while on a school netball trip. They were arrested and spent 10 hours in police custody. The school's principal confirmed all students and staff arrived back safely and the matter has been resolved, Beck.
Kathleen O'Connor, thank you.
We have pictures just in of a car fire on the Westgate Bridge. It erupted in flames in the past hour. Only 2 lanes are open city-bound until Todd Road, and drivers are warned to expect long delays as emergency crews worked to clear the scene.
Well, 48 hours out from the biggest sporting event in the world this year, beer has been banned from the World Cup in Qatar.
It's the latest controversy to plague an already fraught tournament, the first to be held in a Middle Eastern country.
2 days before a tournament 12 years in the planning, a culture clash shifting the goalposts. Football's governing body, FIFA, banning alcohol from being sold in all World Cup stadiums, caving to pressure from the Qatari royal family, the rulers of the deeply conservative host country. Qatar had initially agreed to allow the sale of Budweiser, its sponsorship deal with FIFA worth more than $110 million. The beer giant making a joke, tweeting, "Well, this is awkward," before later deleting it. Many of the 1 million fans travelling to Doha bemused by the last-minute booze ban.
Considering it's like 2 days before, I think everyone's going to be a bit like, oh.
So for us, we are here for the soccer and not in order to get wasted.
But so far the sport's taken a back seat. Qatar scrutinised over its human rights abuses and exploitation of migrant workers who have died building World Cup infrastructure. For the hosts and FIFA, the football can't start soon enough. Sarah Greenhalgh, 7 News.
A man was arrested after reports of gunshots in an apartment building. Police swooped on the West Melbourne complex at 4:30 yesterday afternoon. The building went into lockdown with residents unable to return to their homes. The 34-year-old man was released from custody and hasn't been charged. Police say they're still investigating what actually happened.
2 people have been killed and more than a dozen injured after a plane collided with a fire truck when taking off in Peru. Investigators are looking at whether an emergency drill may have led to the disaster.
At Peru's busiest airport, an emergency response about to trigger disaster. That lead fire truck racing onto a runway just as a passenger jet is taking off. The collision tearing off the right engine of the LATAM Airlines Airbus travelling around 250 kilometres an hour sent careering down the runway for the 108 passengers and crew. Terrifying seconds, out of control, flames and smoke filling their windows.
Dios mío.
Before finally coming to a stop, firefighters now speeding towards the burning plane. Passengers quickly evacuating. Everyone on board survived. 20 people were injured, 2 seriously. These passengers posting when life gives you a second chance. But in the truck, 2 firefighters were killed, a third is fighting for life. Peru's president giving his condolences. The airport shut down with an investigation underway into why it happened, with reports the fire crews had been doing an emergency drill before the crash. Paul Karak, 7 News.
A mass exodus of staff has plunged Twitter into further chaos, with some predictions the social media giant's days are numbered. But the company's new billionaire owner appears unfazed, carrying on with his mission to overhaul the site.
Twitter's San Francisco nest trolled. In real life, the target of these projections, the social media giant's new brash billionaire owner, Elon Musk, weathering a tsunami of staff resignations after demanding his employees commit to working extremely hardcore or leave.
He's shifting now the culture of a company he didn't start.
1,200 key engineers and developers now gone. The doors to offices locked, prompting global speculation. The platform Musk paid $65 billion for is teetering on the edge. RIP Twitter trending worldwide.
It's kind of hardcore. Make your decision if you're going to stay or go. Not something that Twitter people are accustomed to.
Tweeting through the mayhem, though, Musk boasting another all-time high in Twitter usage was hit overnight, posting memes, embracing the chaos, before urgently pleading in another email for anyone who actually writes software to report to the 10th floor at 2 p.m. today.
It just seems that with current staff levels, it cannot, and that's just flat out cannot be saved.
Sentiment Musk doesn't appear to share, still pushing his vision for a revamped platform, new content moderation and account verification, things he can't do with workers flying the coop. In the United States, David Woywood, 7 News.
Well, he might have retired 2 years ago, but Gary Ablett can still draw a crowd. In his first game since the 2020 Grand Final, Ablett started on the wing playing for Palmerston in the Northern Territory Football League. The dual Brownlow medalist couldn't get the Magpies over the line against St Mary's, but battled on after an early setback.
I did my calf in the second quarter, so no, I won't be running around again next week. It was really fun, just hearing the crowd. I know it reminded me, obviously, of my AFL days.
Got Beck excited, I can tell you that. Ablett is raising money for his charity up in Darwin. Settle down, Beck.
Done his calf, though, oh, dear me. Well, Australia's pulled a captaincy shock. Abby Jelmy, Pat Cummins took a back seat against England.
Well, Beck, it was the move that no one saw coming. The skipper running drinks as a fellow fast bowler took the reins, while Steve Smith's return to form had a bittersweet end. Footy heavyweights put the heat on this year's top draftees, Bailey Smith and Alistair Clarkson, inspiring the AFL's future stars. Also, the D's redemption story still alive, thanks to who else?
Pearce at ground level gets good traction on the football, and Melbourne are into another grand final.
And the bottom of the rung tactics that left an NBA superstar fuming. He's not happy, the Greek Freak. We'll have more on that shortly.
Thanks, Abby. If you're flying this summer, get ready to pay sky-high prices. Next, why the cost of airline tickets are surging in the lead-up to Christmas.
Also, a Hoon spectator is sent flying in Melbourne's west.
Donald Trump fired up as he aims for a second run at the White House.
And a symbol of Australia's democracy restored after an ugly protest.
Melbourne air travellers are facing sky-high prices if they want to fly interstate this Christmas. Ticket costs are soaring, and travel agents warn the price pain is expected to linger for at least another year.
Just weeks out from the summer holidays, and crowds at Melbourne Airport are already starting to build.
They've saved it up and they're raring to go.
Victorians are taking off, but at a price.
I don't think we're going to go back to the golden age of cheap airfares for a long time.
In just 4 months, domestic airfares rose 56%, according to the ACCC.
We've seen a pent-up demand and ongoing demand, being really, really high. I have been a travel agent for 35 years, and I can tell you I've never seen anything like it.
Experts blame high jet fuel prices and pandemic staffing levels for the surging cost.
They've got to get the aircraft back up and they've got to get the staff back in.
If you book now, return flights from Melbourne to Perth in time for Christmas will cost you $1,500. Melbourne to Sydney will cost you $350. If Brisbane is your destination, a ticket is around $700. And a return flight to Adelaide for $470. Overseas, Melbourne to Singapore will cost you $2,000 return, $2,000 to get to New Zealand, and $2,500 to Bali.
Since the mid-year holiday chaos, Melbourne Airport has employed additional staff, including at security checkpoints, but it's still urging passengers to pack their patience during the Christmas period.
Some families or some travellers in general are postponing their travel to past Christmas. In the second half of next year, we'll find that it's probably going to balance out a little bit.
Kathleen O'Connor, 7 News.
Videos emerged of a hoon driver hitting a spectator at an illegal gathering in Truganina in July. The man was sent flying but appeared to be okay. A Hoppers Crossing man is facing a string of charges after being arrested in his pyjamas earlier this week. Police say he is one of the state's worst hoons.
Donald Trump's presidential campaign is already on the back foot. He's been made the subject of a second special counsel investigation that will oversee a criminal inquiry into Mr. Trump's involvement in the January 6 riots.
Appointing a special counsel at this time is the right thing to do. The extraordinary circumstances presented here demand it.
It's just a witch hunt for no reason. I've proven to be one of the most honest and innocent people ever in our country. Joe Biden is a corrupt and incompetent political hack. This is a rigged deal. I've done nothing wrong.
Mr. Trump announced his intention to run for the White House again just 2 days ago.
1 year after Old Parliament House in Canberra was set on fire by protesters, it's ready to open its doors again. The historic building had major repairs after suffering significant damage. Tonight, we have an exclusive look at the restoration.
One of Australia's most treasured heritage sites under siege. Old Parliament House torched by violent protesters.
Seeing that footage of the flames at the front of the building, the expectation was, oh, it is just the doors, but the extent was much more significant.
The fire destroying the portico as it burst through the front doors and up King's Hall. Water used to extinguish the blaze inundated the main entry, and all 3 stories of the interior were stained black from soot.
Just the sheer scale of it was, I guess, quite disheartening.
But the restoration effort extraordinary. Birdcage scaffolding had to be erected to remove ash from the high ceilings. The portico entirely rebuilt from just a steel frame. Timber front doors so scorched repair workers weren't sure they could be saved, undergoing a delicate process to stabilise the core of each panel.
The Conservatives were able to save 65% of the door fabric and rebuild the front face.
1927 parquetry flooring in the foyer waterlogged and torn up. Fresh concrete put down, new-aged jarrah timber laid above, replicating the original design.
It was a scale that meant we had to have the building closed for 4 months.
And a scar that's finally healed. Old Parliament House is preparing for its grand reopening next weekend after a $5 million makeover. Jeremy Frost, 7 News.
There are new fears tonight. Australian sports stars are at risk of being targeted by organised crime syndicates. Details next on 7 News.
Also, new insight into the Australian Navy's largest loss of life.
A self-made billionaire jailed. Her baby could be born behind bars.
And from rare to ridiculous, sneaker fans descend on Melbourne.
The boss of the nation's sports integrity watchdog is concerned a surge in gambling-addicted athletes is escalating the threat of corruption. His comments follow allegations of illegal betting activity on the AFL's Brownlow medal. David Sharp says organised crime syndicates will exploit athletes with big gambling debts. Australians bet $11 billion on sport every year.
This time next week, counting will have started to decide who'll be the next Premier of Victoria. Daniel Andrews is seeking a 3rd term, but Matthew Guy believes he can do it, despite a bumpy campaign road. He sat down with our state political reporter, Chanel Vella.
Calm and comfortable at home with wife Renee.
We know what we have to do and we're just going to get on and do it.
Full steam ahead. I think we're feeling good, aren't we?
I agree.
Yeah.
It's a position Matthew Guy and his family have been in before, this time trying for his 2nd shot at Premier after a thrashing in 2018.
He's had a lot of experience now. I think he'd make a fantastic Premier. I've always thought that.
What makes your position different this time compared to last time? And do you notice that difference?
Because we've done it before, we know the drill. We know what to expect. We're focused. We just know what we have to do.
Yeah, I think having that experience has really help prepare us for this time round.
But the road has been different. His right-hand man, Tim Smith, forced out over a drink-driving disgrace. Shadow Treasurer David Davis forced to apologise for his drunken behaviour at a social event. And now a VEC turned IBAC scandal after his chief of staff was sacked for asking a donor to deposit $100,000 into his personal account. All of this while trying to hold the Labor Party to account over integrity issues.
I can't let myself get distracted from some of the day-to-day issues. I just can't, because I know Victorians have an end game they want, and that is something different. And I've got to be, for them, there's something different that they want.
The Labor government goes after you. They say you have to have a government that does both, SRL and health. What do you say to those voters who do want both?
You can't have everything. Be wary of politicians who promise everything, because you can't have everything in life. We can't have a suburban rail loop and fix the health system from top to bottom.
7 News requested an interview with Daniel Andrews and wife Catherine. The request was declined. Chanel Vella, 7 News.
A businesswoman once dubbed the world's youngest self-made billionaire has been jailed for more than 11 years. Elizabeth Holmes founded Theranos, a blood testing company that promised to revolutionise disease diagnoses. But it was all a scam, and she's now been sent to prison for fraud. She's heavily pregnant and will have her second child in jail.
India has launched its own privately developed rocket, the Vikram-S. The rocket took off from the country's space centre, hitting a peak altitude of almost 90 kilometres before splashing down in the Bay of Bengal. The mission's been declared a success as India works to create its own commercial space industry. 3D technology is helping provide our deepest insight yet into the largest loss of life in Australian naval history.
HMAS Sydney sank, leaving no survivors after becoming locked in a battle with a disguised German raider off the WA coast. Now researchers have reconstructed the wreckage.
500,000 images, 300 hours of high-def video. Our largest naval tragedy recreated, the wrecks more accessible than ever before.
It's a very significant event in Australian history, and important that we keep that story alive.
81 years ago today, the HMAS Sydney sank. For decades, mystery and controversy surrounded what happened. In 2008, the wreck was found off WA's coast, along with the German raider HSK Cormoran. Evidence shows the German ship was disguised as a trading vessel. Once Sydney was too close for her armaments to be effective, Cormoran opened fire. Both ships sank. 318 Germans were captured, but all 645 Australians died.
From the perspective of the German crew, everything they've said in their interviews back in 1941 after they were captured correlated with what we see on the seafloor today.
In 2015, Curtin University and the WA Museum teamed up for a trip to the wreck sites. The vision and images they captured have been run through a supercomputer, creating this model. It's 2D, it's 3D, it can be used in virtual reality. A 3D printer will be able to make replicas similar to these. The wrecks of the Sydney and Cormoran are 200 kilometres offshore at a depth of 2,500 metres. Not exactly an easy dive. It makes modelling like this as important as ever, a reminder of the horrors of war for generations to come. Rory Campbell, 7 News.
Thousands of shoe fanatics have arrived in Melbourne for the country's biggest sneaker convention. It's a lucrative market, with some collectors owning thousands of pairs.
It's the ultimate day out for footwear fans, Melbourne's first Sneakerland Expo.
To be honest, I wasn't expecting this big of a crowd. We have 5,000 people that bought the tickets.
And thousands of pairs on show, collectors circling to trade, plus silent auctions, raffles, shoe-themed tattoos and bling for that extra sneaker sparkle.
But everyone's getting around the Nike Dunk Lows, the Pandas, Syracuse, all those sort of colourways.
Father of two Pedro da Silva has 193 pairs at his Burnside Heights home.
Do you think they will appreciate in value? I'd like to think so with the amount I've spent.
How much did you spend today, for instance?
2,000.
Some collections even bigger.
6,800.
You have 6,800 pairs of shoes?
Yes, I do.
Why? You've only got 2 feet.
Well, I got sport for it. I play basketball for a living.
A shoe authenticator was checking legitimacy. One thing usually reveals the fakes.
One of the giveaways, like you will smell some really strong, like plastic kind of smell.
And it's important to know because it's big money. These 1985 Jordan 1s owned by Jamal Diallo said to be worth $100,000.
Have you ever worn these? I have never worn these, and I will never wear them.
Because?
They mean something too much.
80% of Jordan sneakers had actually appreciated in value over the last 12 months.
If you're sent to a sneaker convention in business shoes, it's okay to make a quick change into something more appropriate. And of course, then you need to give your new kicks a test run. Paul Dowsley, 7 News.
Oh dear. I don't know what to say about all that.
What would have thought?
OK, Melbourne house prices continue to fall. Today's auction results next on 7 News.
A driver wanted over the hit run of a child found hiding in a cupboard.
A call for more Melbourne families to become puppy foster carers.
And burgers for a cause as Victorians raise funds to help sick kids and their families.
A man has been charged over the hit and run of a young boy in Brisbane. Police raided the 24-year-old's home, finding him hiding in a cupboard. The 12-year-old was riding his bike when he was mowed down by a Commodore, the driver and passenger making a run for it. The boy suffered a head injury and multiple fractures.
Affordable housing is becoming increasingly hard to find for Victorian families, with only 1 in 10 properties listed online selling for under $600,000. That number has more than halved since the start of the pandemic. The fall has been worse in regional areas. Auction clearance rates are also on the way down, with just 65% of properties going under the hammer today, selling down on last week and this time last year.
There's a push for more Victorian families to become foster carers for puppies in training to become detector dogs. The Labrador Retrievers spend almost a year in their homes before getting down to business.
These dogs are being trained for the front line of Australia's border protection. Detector dogs check passengers and luggage for meat, seeds or fruit, anything that could bring pests or diseases into the country. So far, they've also seized $27 million cash and close to 3,000 kilograms of narcotics.
It's a capability that we can get into avenues where we can't as a human. They're very good at that search and hunt drive.
But training these puppies is no easy feat. More than 200 Victorians are part of the foster care program, and today their hard work was acknowledged.
We tell people all the time about how good it is. It's the benefits of having a pet, but not having the full responsibility.
We work with the community to raise these beautiful, beautiful puppies who help serve our country by tracking down criminals, helping us find drugs and excess cash, and keeping our borders safe.
Border Force need more foster carers. It's a big job taking care of one of these puppies. You need to be able to care for them for up to 12 months to ensure they become well-balanced and confident dogs.
It's all about willingness, a bit of energy and a backyard that can survive a Labrador Retriever.
There are some ups and downs in helping our government raise a Border Force dog because they're so beautiful, and eventually you do need to give these beautiful dogs back.
Applications to become a detector dog foster carer can be made online. Ellie Wicks, 7 News.
Well, stars have served customers at Macca's restaurants across Australia, raising money for sick children and their families on McHappy Day. Tigers captain Toby Nankervis among those lending a hand flipping burgers.
Come down and buy a Big Mac, buy some socks, buy some helping hands, and it goes to a great cause.
Ronald McDonald House Charities helps over 46,000 seriously ill and injured children every year.
Sport is next with Abby Gelmy, and Abby, Steve Smith is a man of his word.
He certainly is, Mike. The Aussie star says he's returned to form, and he delivered again against England as Mitchell Starc produces a savage opening spell with a new ball at the SCG. Plus, with Ross the Boss watching on, a star of the future reveals his draft wish. Melbourne 1 win away from AFLW glory, but there's a big injury concern for Daisy's D's, and how a Shepparton teenager plans to shock the world in Qatar. Welcome back. Daisy Pearce's AFLW Premiership dream lives on, with Melbourne into a second straight grand final. The D's outlasted North Melbourne in a hard-fought 17-point win, victory at Icon Park.
At ground level, shrugs Riddell onto her right boot, gets good traction on the football, and Melbourne are into another grand final.
The Demons take on the Lions in Brisbane next Sunday, but they do have a big injury worry, with Taylor Harris picking up a shoulder concern in the first quarter. Some of the footy world's biggest movers and shakers have had their last look at the cream of the crop from this year's draft. One of the top 3 draftees is ready to fulfil a lifelong dream, but with a twist.
Even after a year in the spotlight, the sight of Ross Lyon and recruiters is enough to push these prospects 9 days out from the draft.
The start was a bit nervous, you know, got to make sure your kicks are hitting targets.
It's a bit nerve-wracking, but yeah, just to have fun is probably the main thing for me.
A final chance for the Connor Sports management stable to impress, led by Essendon's Daniel G and Syracusa in front of 15 clubs. None more hungry than North Melbourne, armed with pick 2 and 3, their sights set on midfield gun George Wardlaw.
Anything can happen, and it's not 100% confirmed, but yeah, I think about it and I'm very comfortable with that, and yeah, it'd be awesome.
He's likely to be joined at Arden Street by Harry Sheasel, the explosive forward dazzling with power and class for Sandringham. This week, the lifelong Hawthorn fan will meet Alistair Clarkson, preparing to play for the man he once idolised.
It was probably like a dream of mine, because I just saw him as like this unbelievable coach that is just like a mastermind. So yeah, to maybe be like playing under him it's pretty exciting.
Less certainty for top 10 midfielder Elijah Sardis, linked to Essendon and Hawthorn.
The unknown can have a bit of anxiety around it, but that's a part of the process. Yeah, it's a national draft and who knows what can happen.
Collingwood among clubs circling defender Jacob Ryan and his Bailey Smith-inspired haircut.
I just got a buzz card and let it grow out, so I haven't cut the back for about a year and a half, and yeah, who knows, maybe the umpires might give me a vote or two there.
Mitch Cleary, 7 News.
Australia has pulled off a captaincy surprise with Josh Hazlewood given the reins and Pat Cummins rested against England. Steve Smith helped the Aussies post 280 batting first before Mitchell Starc delivered a stunning start with the new ball with 2 wickets in the first over.
In front of the old stands, a new captain, Josh Hazlewood, won his first toss, replacing a rested Pat Cummins.
I think he was happy to have a rest, actually, with the amount of cricket coming up. Just a nice little, you're captain next game.
Moeen Ali doing likewise for England's Joss Butler. The stand-in skipper swept aside an annoyed Dave Warner for 16. Chris Wokes hurried up Travis Head on 19, 2 for 43. Cue Marnus Labuschagne.
Gee, that's an aggressive shot from Marnus. 1 then 6.
On track to top his unbeaten 80 in Adelaide, Steve Smith.
Lofted by Smith. That's an imperious stroke from Stephen Smith.
Abdul Rashid fooled Labuschagne into a false stroke on 58. Alex Carey stumped for a golden duck as Smith's 13th one-day century beckoned.
And there is one right there. A step across and a flick.
His bid for triple figures halted on the boundary for 94.
Doesn't get all of it, but is it enough? No.
Rashid claiming a furious Smith for the 6th time in one-day internationals. Replacing arrested Cam Green, Mitch Marsh smashed a half-century from 59 balls.
Has he got enough? Yes, he has.
Ashton Agar clubbing a cameo 18. England's target, 281.
Sounded clean. He's got enough elevation to go up and over.
The crowd may need plenty more catching practice tonight. Andrew McKinlay, 7 News.
From Shepparton to Qatar, one Aussie teenager won't be taking a backward step against the game's best at the World Cup. Garang Kuol shaped as a potential X-factor for the Socceroos, just 4 days out from a matchup with football giants France.
In amongst the Socceroos squad, a trio of young stars that are playing for more than just World Cup glory.
Maybe we're the next golden generation, so I think that's a big call, but we have a motivation to try to, shock the world.
Meet the new faces of Australia, Abor Mabil, Thomas Deng and Garang Kuol. 18-year-old Kuol should be packing for schoolies. Instead, he could be the youngest ever Socceroo to play at a World Cup.
It's all about, just having confidence in yourself and being ruthless and, having that mindset to want to create something and, make an impact.
3 years ago, Quoll and his mum would make the 4-hour round trip from Shepparton to play in Melbourne. He's since moved on to Central Coast in the A-League, taking on football's biggest stars in Qatar. No problem.
I wouldn't say intimidation. I find it more exciting, to see what you can do against players of that calibre.
For me, I don't fear anybody. They're humans just like us.
A chance to inspire and create their own legacy on the global stage.
I just want to prove to, kids, especially, South Sudanese kids around the world that, you can make something of yourself if you just work.
We really want to shock the world and, we've got the quality to do that. It's just about believing in ourselves.
Andrew McCormack, 7 News.
Daniel Ricciardo's return to Red Bull as a reserve driver next year has been confirmed. The Aussie was 9th in practice ahead of his final Grand Prix for McLaren. Max Verstappen was fastest in Abu Dhabi as he looks to end the year on a high. Sebastian Vettel was greeted with his first ever race suit as he prepares for his last Formula One race before retirement. And NBA superstar Giannis Antetokounmpo missed 9 free throws in the Bucks' loss to the 76ers. And in his plan to practice post-game, that was thwarted by Philadelphia workers.
What
He wasn't happy. The Greek freak eventually managed to clear the floor for his workout. Just a ladder coming out, He
was a bit upset, wasn't he? Thanks, Abs. Now, the weather is turning and there are warnings in place. Sonia Marinelli joins us. And Son, there could be wild weather tonight.
There could be, Mike. We've got storms crossing a large part of the state. I'll have the details coming up for you up next.
On Weekend Sunrise, the perfect time to buy. Why first home buyers should act now to get on the property ladder. And the first fruit of the season, the punters paying big bucks for a kilo of cherries. Plus, breakfast with the stars. Richard E. Grant is down under and joins us in studio. Sunday, 7 a.m.
Hello again. Well, we've got a line of severe storms marching across the state. Several areas tonight are under threat. We've got storms firing up over the Mallee that could produce locally destructive winds and giant hail. We've got damaging winds and large hail for the rest of this warning area. And there's a damaging wind warning current for this area here, including much of Greater Melbourne. This is what it means for the city tonight. It stays windy. We've got showers and we've also got the potential for severe storms. Both the wind and the storm risk easing though after midnight, but it does redevelop again later tomorrow, and we're also getting a cold snap. It's such a shame because the warmer weather had only just arrived yesterday. From a mild overnight low of 16, we eventually reached 22, but that wind chill this afternoon kept the feels like down in the mid-teens. It did heat up in the northwest, but generally these maximums 2 to 4 degrees below average statewide. So it is a very vigorous cold front that we're tracking tonight. It's bringing the wild weather as it tracks towards the east. And then tomorrow, hot on its heels, we've got another cold front. This one is weaker, but it is still likely to deliver another round of storms to southern Victoria during Monday afternoon. And if that's not enough, we're getting that cold snap. Cooler temperatures tomorrow. We've got snow on the Alps, but it plummets on Monday and that snow level drops right down to 700 metres. So we could get snow on the Dandenongs. So those showers also keep going well into next week. These are the current flood warnings, but the pollen level drops down by Monday. It's down to low. That is at least some good news in the outlook. To the forecast now, we've got possible showers and storms for those in Brisbane tomorrow. Sunny but windy in Sydney. Showers for Adelaide and also down in Hobart. So this is your Sunday forecast. We've got scattered showers tending to widespread rain down in the south. Thunderstorms could develop on and south of the divide, possibly severe down in that southwest corner. We've got small hail possible about the southwest, also central parts later at night. Sunday, it's cool. It's mostly cloudy with that damaging wind risk redeveloping from the west during the afternoon. So closer in, we are expecting early morning showers, a possible rumble of thunder both early morning and into the late afternoon. Possible hail at night, winds up to 40 kilometres an hour at times. In the city, a low of 12, top of 19, showers, the odd storm, possible hail at night. It gets really cold again on Monday, just 15 is the top. It's windy with showers up to 17 on Tuesday, a shower or 2 showers, and 19 by Wednesday, 21 dry on Thursday. But we're getting up to 25 degrees on Friday. It's a really good day and the one we're watching out for. 26 with showers on Saturday, but a top of just 19 in the city tomorrow with showers, storms and hail possible at night. We really cannot catch a break.
It's terrible.
Snow.
It's ridiculous.
I want my money back on spring. Thank you, Son. And that's 7 News for this Saturday. We'll have updates throughout the night.
For now, from the 7 News team, good night.
Oh.
Stop saying snow.